Hello everyone, welcome to I believe the first article breakdown for Power Star Japan. Since Persona 3 Reload is coming out, I'm going to be breaking down this article. To say something you may already know, don't harass this person or leave any comments. Criticism is fine, as long as it's an attempt to be constructive and not insulting. Alright, I'm just going to jump into it now. Starting off with the first paragraph, I feel like the author already contradicts himself. Maybe I'm wrong, but how could Persona 3 be both the black sheep of the series, but also establish the foundation? I won't disagree with the fact that the story is pretty heavy and dark for Persona 3, relatively compared to Persona 4 and 5, but Persona 2 also had a pretty heavy storyline, so much so that it had to be split into 2 games. Anyway, the next 2 paragraphs are sort of recaps, so I don't have too much to argue with that. I will note that they have played Persona 3 Portable and not the OG or Fest versions. I'm not sure about any of the other games outside of 3 and 5, but more on that a little later. Okay, now onto this paragraph. It's here where the influence of Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal permeates this remake. There's a makeshift garden on the rooftop of the dorm where you can plant veggies and produce items during combat. I don't see how this is a problem. If it's a useful feature, why not incorporate it? It seems like since 3 started the formula, each release between Persona 3 to Persona 5 Royal and more recently Persona 3 Reload have been building on top of each other, with each release an enhanced port. Why not incorporate something that's an optional but helpful quality of life feature? I could be wrong, but I'm gonna make an assumption that the author probably only played Persona 3 Portable and possibly both versions of Persona 5 at most, since they only compare Persona 3 and 5 the whole time, rather than the series as a whole. But then again, I'm not like other Persona fans, I've actually played the games. Because the vegetable feature isn't even a Persona 5 original feature, it was actually added to the enhanced port of Persona 4, Persona 4 Golden, where the player can tend to the garden outside of the Dojima residence. Okay, then they talk about some features they added, can't really comment on that since I haven't played it yet. But then they mention the flashy cutscenes a la Royal's Showtime attack. I'm not going to say Persona 5 doesn't have style, it does, and in spades. But to me, that's just the perfection of the feature that started in Persona 3 Portable, where after the protagonist lands a critical hit, another party member may also join and follow up with a critical attack. And continued with Persona 4 Golden, where certain members like Chie and Yukiko, or Naoto and Kanji have their combination attacks. I get why the director Takuya Yamaguchi said that Persona 5 has become the standard, so even if Persona 3 Reload plays like Persona 5, it makes sense. Persona 5 is when the series really became mainstream. Sure, people have played Persona 3 and 4, but when 5 came out, everyone was talking about it. Persona 5 is also mostly the ideas of the other games built on top of each other, so it makes sense. Now we get to, sadly the tone is constantly compromised by a presentation that's too colorful, flashy, and refined for this material, pushing for spectacle and fidelity over grit and atmosphere. It brings sophistication to an ambience originally renowned for its grim trappings. Again, Persona 5 was a huge hit. Why wouldn't Atlus build upon some of the style and adjust it to fit with the Persona 3 remake? And while yes, I know that Persona 3 has a heavy story, not every part of the game needs a dark filter or washed out colors to help service the tone of the game. Persona 4 is a murder mystery but still has bright colors and a generally cheery atmosphere, but still has some of its serious moments when necessary. Persona 5 is colorful and flashy, and I'm not going to say it does it well in every case, but that tackles some things such as depression, abuse of power, sexual harassment, and so on. Now we get to, if you're unsure what to do after school, your phone now acts like the one in Persona 5 or Grand Theft Auto 5, listing SMS messages from confidants. There's also a little sense of discovery now. Atlus has overcompensated and made things too simple. Like Royal, everything becomes a checklist to promptly tackle and move on. Just like the vegetables, this is another example of a quality of life feature. They streamlined the social link mechanic to make it easier for newcomers. It's also an optional feature, so you don't have to use it if you don't want to. The gameplay is catered to different ways people can play the game, allowing for people to play it differently. And even though Persona 5 and Royal had that feature, there were still other places to explore outside of just going to see confidants that could improve stats and offer other benefits. Persona 5 and its enhanced version of Royal were also big successes, and the development team for Persona 3 Reload probably worked under the assumption that a lot of people playing this remake played either version of that game. So why not add some familiar elements, and again, further supports Yamaguchi's point about Persona 5 being the standard and why the nice features that were present in that game are also shared with Reload. Finally, on to the last paragraph. Regardless of how many refinements are made, the fatigue of Persona 5 likes is starting to set in. Persona 3 is being brought to the spotlight under these new standardized criteria. After all these years, it's becoming just another sheep in the herd. I get what he means by that, but again, it makes sense that Persona 3 Reload plays like Persona 5 and, by extension, Persona 5 Royal, since that was the previous release. Why not build upon and adapt certain features from Persona 5 that add to the gameplay when possible? If he doesn't like the remake, it's fine. I just don't get why Persona 3 Reload playing like Persona 5 Royal before it is an issue, when this might be someone's second or third Persona game. And while the comparison for Persona 3 Reload and Persona 5 Royal makes sense, some of the features aren't exclusive to those games and have appeared in Persona 4 even, if not Persona 1 and both Persona 2s also. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know any points that you disagree with and I'll try to respond in the comments section below. Until the next one, take care.